Hi all, this is Jan Almighty and welcome to this video. For today I decided to show you another game from Fischer. It is once again a game from the Santiago tournament of 1959, and here he is playing with white pieces against Herman Pilnik. So some of you may remember Mr. Pilnik because I already featured a game with him and it was from the list of Fischer's memorable games. But today we don't feature a memorable game, but I guess this game could be featured in one other list, which could be named something like Fischer teaches a lesson in Sicilian once again. So just by saying that, you know that this will be pretty interesting. I have already shown a couple of games from Fischer where Fischer just crushes his opponent in the Sicilian, and of course you know that he will play bishop to the c4, the Sozin attack. So that being said, let me just show you the game. E4 c5, the Sicilian, knight to f3, knight to c6. They went into the standard classical variation. After these exchanges in the center, we see d6. So no accelerated dragon or nothing like that, but allowing Fischer to play his signature move bishop to c4. We see e6 and bishop to b3. And now bishop to e7. So now they just continue with the development. Castling kingside, as Fischer usually does. And now we see bishop to e3. So developing this bishop on e3, bishop to d7, and now f4. So this is pretty standard, all in the limits of the main line. Knight to d4 and bishop captures on d4. Sorry, bishop to c6. As you can see in this variation, black decides to play something like this, having the bishop on c6, not having played a6 and b5, and then bishop to b7. So this is just one of the ways how you can develop this bishop, but probably this will cost him later in the game. The pawn is attacked twice, so queen to e2 defending, queen to a5 developing the queen, and now f5. So all pretty standard and all in the main line. Attacking this pawn, so e5 is played, and now bishop to f2. You don't want to play it on e3 because then even black can capture. Bishop captures, knight captures, knight captures. White has an initiative, he has the bishop pair, but he has just lost the pawn. And Fischer doesn't want to do that, so he plays bishop to f2. And now we have a strange plan created by black. So in this situation, you don't really have a move that you like, some natural move that you can make. You can, for example, play the rooks on d8 and c8, because I guess that would finish up your development, but it seems that those moves are kind of too slow. You definitely need to make a plan, and a usual plan for black in this situation would be to play something like b5, trying to play b4 in order to move the knight so that you can have an extra attacker on this pawn and maybe capture it. If a3 is played, play the queen back and try with a5 to disrupt something on the queen side, or even double up the rooks on the d file so that you can push d5. But this plan maybe wouldn't be so successful because white can easily play rook to d1, and with having the bishop on b3, it is very difficult to push d5 in this position. But this is something that you would usually see played in this situation. But Pilnik decides to play bishop to d8. So for some reason, I guess he wants to exchange this dark square bishop from Fischer. And Fischer plays normally, rook from a to d1, attacking this pawn. Pilnik ignores it, and he plays bishop to b6. And now g4. So white has finished the development, and he starts with the attack. He doesn't need to capture the bishop. If black wants to spend 3 moves capturing this bishop on f2, let him have it. In the meanwhile, white will push h4 g5 and already seriously start with the attack. We have h6 played, stopping g5, and now h4. Knight to h7, and already here Fischer could have played g5. But to actually see all the variations, it is quite difficult, so probably Fischer didn't want to complicate things. If pawn captures, and knight captures, you should play queen to g4. Having the queen on the g file, it is quite dangerous for black, because black's king is all the way there on the queen side. Bishop to d8 would be a good defender for this knight, but then you also have rook to d6. It is very difficult to see what are the best moves here for black. f6 is a threat, so something like bishop to f6 can be played, but then bishop to e3 attacking the knight, and if rook to d8 you can even capture on f6. Pawn captures, bishop captures, pawn captures and queen captures, and this is a lost game for black. So this is just one of the variations, but whatever essentially black plays here, it doesn't seem that he can stop the threats of doubling up the rooks on the d file, playing bishop to e3, or not even doubling up, playing bishop to e3 and pushing f6 if he doesn't stop it by playing some moves. So definitely not the best of positions for black, but okay, better to play it safe sometimes. So rook to d3 is played by Fischer, and it's a move that has a purpose. So you want to transfer the rook on the g file or on the h file, depending on what black plays. We have king to h8 and only now g5. So now Fischer is ready to push d5. Bishop to d4, and here Fischer actually had a chance to make a very nice sacrifice, playing rook to d4. And if pawn captures, having this bishop on d4 on this diagonal, that would be really good for white. Then after that, playing queen to h5, something like that, this would bring black definitely a big set of problems. If you play something like f6 to stop some stuff, even g6 is possible. So simply just capturing this knight, because the knight cannot go anywhere. So a dead lost position for black. But okay, Fischer continued once again with some other idea, which is also not bad. King to h2, moving the king out of the way. We have bishop to b5, attacking the rook, so knight to b5, queen to b5, and c3. Bishop captures on f2 and rook captures on f2. After all this, we end up in a position after all of these exchanges where black essentially doesn't have a move to play. He doesn't want to open up the h file because it will be definitely worse for him. He cannot push d5, and he doesn't have any other move. White will just continue with the plan, with the attack, and it doesn't seem that black has any counterplay. So playing the queen to a5 and then this maneuver bishop to d8, bishop to b6 is definitely something you shouldn't play in the Sicilian. Queen to b6 now, so defending the pawn and putting the queen on a better square essentially. Rook to g2, moving the rooks from this attacked square so that the queen can probably go to h5. d5, and now bishop captures on d5. You can call it a pawn sacrifice, but essentially black didn't improve his position. He probably wanted to do it so that the queen can defend on the 6th rank. But then again, this didn't help him that much. A rook from a to d8, and now queen to h5. Slowly but surely, Fischer will finish up this game. g6. So the last try from Pilnik, queen to h6, and now he maybe could have gone with something like pawn captures to f5 to maybe try to exchange queens, but there is this g6 move. And if pawn captures, rook captures, you do have this queen to f2 check, but after king to h1, whatever black plays, queen to f1 or queen to e1, you can just cover, and checkmate threat is there. So you have to sacrifice the queen for the rook. Essentially, once again, a lost position. So Pilnik didn't go for this, he played a rook to d5. So sacrificing the rook, so another piece for the exchange in order to simplify the position. Pawn captures on d5 and now e4. But the rook simply moves to g3, and now queen to d6. A move that pins the rook, so temporarily solving some issues, but at the same time you are also moving the queen from the defended square, putting the queen on the unprotected square, which essentially allows Fischer to play h5, even put more pressure on the g6 pawn, and because the pawn cannot capture, the queen will be captured. Now rook to g8 defense, but here the game is already over. Pawn captures, and f6. The correct move. So now the black king is in the corner and he cannot go anywhere. In this situation, there are only a small set of moves that you can make, but all of them lead to checkmate. Here, Pilnik kind of sped up the process, and he played queen to d5. And this is actually a very nice exercise for you. If you want to try and find a checkmate in 2, I would suggest to you to pause the video and try to find it. It is a very simple tactic, so yeah, try to find and make you feel good about yourself, at least for this. So yeah, Fischer of course found it. He played in this position queen captures on h7, and in this position actually Pilnik resigned the game. So yeah, the reason is if king captures, then rook to h3 simply wins its checkmate. Here black, yeah, I don't think there was any point in discussing what black could have played here, because when he plays something like queen to c7, king just moves out of the pin to h1 or g1, and this should be enough. Move the king out of the checks and pile up on the h file, and you will win the game. So yeah, this is pretty much it for this game. I want to show you the standings of the Santiago tournament of 1959. As you can see, Fischer didn't really had the best of tournaments. Okay, he had 7.5 points, only a point and a half behind Ivkov and Pachman. Both of them won a game against Fischer, and in third place we had Pilnik, whom I don't know how he managed to end up in third place if Fischer just destroyed him like this in this game. But okay, you can have a bad day sometimes, and I guess Pilnik had it in while playing this game. So yeah, this is pretty much it for this video. I would like to thank you for watching it. Next, in the Fischer series, we will going to go over the Zurich tournament of 1959. Until then, cheers.